program with NAU, the university up in Flagstaff, studying them. They're not, generally speaking, really a threat. Now this one has been hanging out on one of our rangers' back porches, so we'd probably like to discourage that. But it might be that just catching them today is enough discouragement to, oh, maybe I better not hang out in that place, because last time I hung out there, I got swiped up and thrown in a bucket. We can hope. But at the same time, they actually belong in the park just as much as we do, maybe even more. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to preserve and to protect both the cultural and the natural resources of the site, and the rattlesnakes are a vital part of the environment here. Quite frankly, I'm glad we have rattlesnakes around employee housing, because it keeps down the number of mice that we have around employee housing. And rattlesnakes generally are not much of a threat as long as you leave them alone and give them their space. Whereas mice, when they get in your walls and your ceilings and everything and poop everywhere, then you've got a hantavirus risk, not to mention the smell.
Is that the rattle that we hear?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so we like our rattlesnakes. They do a good thing in the park. And that's why we started studying them, is because we kind of had issues that we would discover. We'd get a rattlesnake on the trail. Be like, oh, that's inconvenient. We move it off the trail. An hour later, it's back on the trail. We move it off the trail. And then we'd, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to relocate it. And we take it in a truck out on the Forest Service land and dump it somewhere. And then we started to have some, researchers who were like, well, is this really the best way to work with, what do we even know what we're doing? And so we actually started a research program. We had a batch that they actually radio-collared. Not radio-collared, but they actually put it in the body cavity. And then were able to track where the snakes were going. And so two things. First of all, they found that when they relocated them, most of them came back. You can move a rattlesnake 3 or 4 miles and it will figure out where it used to be and go right back to where it was. So it's no good to relocate them unless you're moving them many, many, many miles. If you do that, they're in some other rattlesnake's territory and it's a good chance they're going to be killed. Which is not also what we're trying to do, is kill rattlesnakes. The second thing that our study of the snakes discovered is that the reason they were coming on the trails is because they needed to get somewhere. The chicken doesn't cross the road just because he wants to get run over. That in our park in particular, rattlesnakes, in the winter it gets cold. They're not active when it's 20 degrees overnight. They're going to stay holed up and try and keep warm through the winter. This slope over here is in the sun all winter long. And so all the rattlesnakes put all their dens up on that slope to sleep through the winter. Well, that means when spring hits and they thaw out, the only way to get from their dens to their hunting territories is to cross our trail. And the reason we had problems with the snake kept coming back on the trail is we were putting it on the wrong side of the trail. And so basically we figured out that in the spring, when we get a rattlesnake on the trail, you put it down slope. And it's going to go about and find its territory and it's going to be fine. And in the fall, when it comes back and wants to get uphill to its den, you put it uphill. And it will not come back on the trail, it will go uphill and find its den.
Simple solution.
Yes, and so we don't need to relocate them, we don't need to punish them. But in the meantime, we have also gotten really cool information about them to be able to find out how long they live, how they grow, etc. So we don't radio track them any longer. The radios were kind of big. And the surgeries to put it inside the snake weren't... When they did the original study, they intended to study 10 snakes. By the time they got to snake 7, 2 of them had died on the operating table. And they're like, okay, no, this is not what we're aiming to do here, is kill snakes. So they just did they did the study with the 5 snakes they had. But what we do still do on snakes that are big enough is put a pit tag in. It's basically the same kind of microchip you put in your dog if you want to be able to have that little thing oh, that's your dog. It's got his barcode in there. So we put those in our snakes. And then when we catch them, we can scan them and, oh, hey, this is number 2257643 that we caught last year. And we can see, oh, gee, it grew 3 inches. It's got an extra rattle now on its rattle.
Will they have more than one?
Yeah, the rattle is actually composed of a series of segments. And so they will generate new ones as they shed skin. but then they also can lose them as they're going through brush, and it might catch on things and break off, or they can even get injured and lose them entirely. We had one that we used to call Stumpy because he had no rattles left at all. Very unfortunate, actually, for that snake. I mean, you don't then have any way to tell the things that are around you that I'm dangerous. They are dangerous, but at the same time, they can't eat you. You know, I mean, even a big 6-foot Western Diamondback is not that hungry. They can't eat you, and so you're a waste of venom.
Well, what do they use? Are there medicinal purposes for the venom?
Other than anti-venom, not that I'm aware of. That I think they do manufacture the stuff they use to counter the venom from some sort of antibodies that I'm not sure exactly how. I want to say that they like inject it into horses or something.
Well, they use it to offset the
blood thinners, things like that.
Okay. So there are some medical uses. I'm sure there are some people then who like farm them in effect and milk the venom. We don't do that. Right now what he's trying to do is get the snake to crawl into the tube. That if we want to handle it, we want the business end of the snake to be not necessarily immobilized, but contained in such a way that we have to worry about it biting us and killing one. Well, probably not killing us, but...
So are they born with their fangs already?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, this is another thing that's, in a sense, a myth about rattlesnakes, is that you'll hear that the little ones are more dangerous. The little ones are not more dangerous. They do have these venom pockets that are in the back. But you'll see when we get this guy out, he's got a tiny little head on him. It's got venom pockets. But even if he injects all the venom that he's got all at once, they're little tiny venom pockets. If you get a 6-foot rattlesnake that's got a head like that, it's probably got a venom sac in there that's big as the front of your thumb. Even if he only injects a third of it, it's probably 3 or 4 times as much as this guy can inject.
Okay, they're just bigger, so they carry more. It's
yes.
in relationship to their size.
So that reputation of these smaller ones are more dangerous, I think, has to do with the fact that the smaller ones may be more apt to get panicky and strike at you and bite. Maybe.
The biting is the last resort.
Again, in many cases, you know, I mean, it depends on the variety. Westerns tend to be a little bit more direct about trying to strike you. The blacktail we caught 3 days ago, it's a different variety of rattlesnake, didn't even rattle practically in the whole time that we tried to handle it. And it just did not, and of course it had been handled before, so maybe it just figured that out. There we go.
He is little.
Yes.
All right, he's got, how many rattles do you can?
Well, we'll find out here shortly. This is presumably the first time we've caught this one.
Oh, okay.
This one's very young.
He's being measured in his ear.
Is that one small enough or too small? Or... When they measure them, they want to be able to get them stretched out as much as possible, and there's usually enough room for them to wiggle in the tube and scrunch up. So he's trying to get it to feed into a smaller tube,
there we go.
and succeeded. Mind you, I guess because the head is a little bit bigger than the rest of the body, that can be hard sometimes.
Yes, sometimes these the small snakes are actually the trickiest ones, because if you have a tube that's, I mean, this is the larger tube is easier to get it into. It wouldn't come into this one, but there are some of the few snakes that can actually turn around in the tube and come back out. So you want to get one that's pretty snug, but this one, as you can see, is fine. Okay, that's safe Gerald.
The other reason that there may be the perception that the smaller ones are more dangerous is the tendency for people to think that they're less dangerous.
So,
look, it's this cute little snake.
So you just basically
so if somebody tries to handle it or pick it up or something like that, and in a sense maybe you're more likely to get bitten by a smaller one.
And the big
because you're
ones
more
that
likely
we
to
find is these small
misjudge
ones
the
are
danger
pretty limited
that you're in.
I was just wondering.
But I want to emphasize that, okay, they're dangerous. You don't want to mess with a rattlesnake. But at the same time, it's not too super common for people to just be bitten randomly. I mean, you might, if you're out walking a trail, accidentally step too close to one and get struck. It does happen. But there's some interesting statistics about rattlesnake bites. So first of all, about 80% of the people who get bitten by rattlesnakes come from a single particular demographic. And that demographic is men.
Yeah.
Of men who get bitten by rattlesnakes, about 80% of them are drunk at the time. About 80% of rattlesnake bites to men are on the hands or wrist. And even a tall rattlesnake cannot strike you generally all the way up on the hands or the wrist. It's a sure indication that you were down there like this with your hand. And by counterpoint, when women, who are only 20% of rattlesnake bites, get bitten, 80% of the time it's on the feet or ankles. That women are much less apt to be sticking their hands down around a rattlesnake. Apparently, maybe more likely to just step on one accidentally, but again, overall, women are a much smaller demographic for getting bitten in general. And so, yes, the major risk factor for being bitten by a rattlesnake is testosterone. Which actually is a major risk factor for lots of other things. But, again, it's not to say that you should underestimate the danger. It is to say that if you're holding a barbecue in your backyard and a rattlesnake shows up, give it some room. Leave it alone. You're not Steve Irwin.
How do you get that thing out of there now?
So when he's done measuring it and all of that, that one would probably be able to pull it out.
Yeah. And then just, you can kind of pull it until it's a little bit loose and then just drop
Tip it into the bucket, let it slide out, and then essentially slide it out of the bucket. This one, again, it's small. Its strike distance is limited.
Yeah, to about a foot and a half.
It also was striking the heck out of our snake tongue earlier, so it's probably blown all of its venom trying to bite the snake, you know. It's another interesting statistic. Quite a substantial number of rattlesnake bites are dry bites. Somebody gets bitten, but they don't inject any venom. Either because they've already used it all, or because they know darn well they can't eat you, and why inject the venom and waste it. And so they're trying to scare you, and they might bite you, and if you back off, then okay, well I didn't waste any venom, but I got the thing to back off. Not to say you shouldn't go to the hospital and get it checked, but a lot of times people get to the hospital and they're like, oh, you know, there's a little bit of venom in the wound, but not, you know, a substantial risk. But if you do, God forbid, get bitten by a rattlesnake, go to the hospital as quickly as you can, and hope that you have insurance. Anti-venom is very expensive, and sometimes it takes more than one dose in order to counter the effects of it. And my understanding is somewhere around $10,000 a dose. So yet another reason not to get drunk and think you're Steve Irwin is that it's very... Steve Irwin is the crocodile guy.
Oh.
I can't remember, like...
Good crikey!
Yeah.
The fangs on him, he's huge!
Yeah, he was the Australian guy who was on TV for a long time.
Okay,
Look, it's a beautiful snake, isn't he a gorgeous one? And he's sitting there holding it by the tail.
You're in no danger, mate! The hell you're not!
And, you know, that guy had a special talent. He had learned how to gauge them, how to handle them, how to not get them angry, how to like get down 2 inches from one and look at it. He did get bitten occasionally. He usually didn't show that on the camera. He had people on hand with anti-venom, you know, for all the
Yeah,
things
you can touch it too, you're welcome to. At least the back end.
He eventually did get killed. But I think that was actually, he was not even doing anything, he was swimming and like was in a couple of stingrays. And one happened to like shove its dart up and went right through his heart. So it wasn't even like that the sting of the stingray killed him so much as it just happened to impale him right through the heart and he died. But I guess the bottom line is that's how you make your living. You know? He had a good career going until an accident happened. And, you know, I think that that's a lot of times as people have seen that on TV, that, oh, he just goes up and, like, gets it by the tail and then it doesn't strike him. And they can turn they have lots of muscles. They can turn their body full around and strike you on the hand or the arm.
Awesome.
You know, the crocodile dude, like, again, had, I think, you know, like you have the horses. You know, somebody who's, like, figured out how to, like, have this again.
Yeah, very, very young.
Understanding.
It's probably less than a year old.
And none of the rest of
What's this?
This is the rattle bit.
It is.
Yeah.
So a very small rattle. It just has the the basal rattle, which is right against the tail.
Yes.
And then this is just the new, yeah, sort of the first rattle beyond that.
They can get pretty big. They can get 6 feet.
Really?
Yeah.